Hey everyone, welcome. So if you've ever tried to learn a new language, you've definitely asked yourself this question, right? How many times do I actually need to repeat this word or phrase for it to stick? It's the big question. Well, guess what? A brand new research paper might just have the answer we've all been looking for, and we're going to dive right into it.
You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You've put in the hours, you've done the flashcards, you feel like you're making progress, and then you try to watch a movie or listen to a native speaker, and it's just a wall of sound. It's so frustrating. You're not alone in feeling that way. It's a huge hurdle for pretty much everyone. So to try and get over that hurdle, a lot of people turn to this really popular technique called shadowing. You've probably heard of it. It gets hyped up as this amazing tool for your listening skills, but what's the deal with it? How does it even work?
Okay, so before we get into the whole how many times question, let's make sure we're all on the same page. What exactly is language shadowing?
So the classic definition, the one this study uses, is pretty specific. It's not just listening to something and then pausing to repeat it. Nope. Shadowing is about repeating what you hear as you're hearing it, in real time. You're trying to be, well, a shadow of the speaker, mimicking everything, the sounds, the rhythm, the flow, as closely as you possibly can. It's tough.
But, just doing shadowing isn't the whole story. The real secret sauce, the thing that actually determines if you're going to see results, is figuring out how to do it effectively. And that brings us right back to our big question, repetition.
This is literally the question at the heart of the entire study. How often should we be doing this? For a long time, the general advice you'd hear, based on older research, was something like 4 or 5 times is plenty. But these researchers, they thought, is that really the whole story? And they decided to put it to the test.
So to get a real answer, this team in Japan set up a pretty cool experiment. They decided to measure how shadowing actually affects 4 distinct but super important language skills.
All right, so let's break these down. First up, the big one, listening comprehension. This is about actually understanding the meaning of what you hear. Next is MWE memorization. That's a fancy term for remembering common chunks of language. Phrases like by the way or long story short. Then we get to the more foundational stuff. There's bottom-up processing, which is basically your brain's ability to catch individual sounds and words in that fast stream of speech. And finally, repetition speed, which is pretty self-explanatory, right? How fast can you repeat what you hear?
And this wasn't just a quick one-off thing. They had 30 university students do this for 11 straight weeks. They measured all 4 of those skills at the very beginning and then again at the very end to see what changed.
Okay, so after all that, what did they find? This is where it gets super interesting. Did they find a magic number? Let's get into the results.
The biggest takeaway was this really cool split. It turns out your goal completely changes the answer. For those higher-level skills, like understanding and memorizing phrases, the number of repetitions was a huge deal. But for the more basic skills, like just recognizing words and getting faster at repeating, it didn't really matter how many times they did it. Just doing it at all was enough to get better.
Check this out. This chart for listening comprehension tells the whole story. Just look at that post-test line. See how it keeps climbing up and to the right? It's super clear. The more times the students repeated the exercise, the better they did on the final test. It's a direct link. More reps equaled better understanding. Simple as that.
But now let's flip to this chart for bottom-up processing. That's just recognizing the words. And it's a totally different picture. Look, everyone got better, right? The post-test scores are definitely higher than the pre-test scores across the board. But notice how the line is pretty much flat. More repetitions didn't give them an extra boost. A little bit of practice was enough. This contrast is so key to understanding what's going on in our brains.
So, what gives? Why the huge difference? Why does repetition supercharge one skill but not another? Well, it all comes down to how our brains actually learn this stuff.
And this is really the core idea of the whole paper. It's not about mindlessly practicing more and more. It's about being smart and matching your practice to your specific goal. And the big fancy word that explains all of this is a concept called automation. And trust me, once you get this, it's a total game changer.
Okay, so think about it like this. Your brain is kind of like a computer. It only has so much processing power at any one time, right? So if all your mental energy is being used up just trying to identify individual sounds and words, you have literally zero brain power left to figure out what it all means. Automatization is about making those basic foundational skills so easy, so automatic that they don't take up any brain power at all. It's like putting them on autopilot, which frees up your mind to tackle the really hard stuff like understanding the actual message.
So the researchers basically updated the old model of how shadowing works. You start with training, which obviously makes you more accurate and faster at repeating. But here's their big insight, that crucial new step, step 4. They figured out that you have to get to a point of automatization. You have to make that basic word recognition totally effortless. It's only after that happens that your brain has the space to actually develop real, deep listening comprehension. That's the missing link.
So what does this all mean for you? It's actually super simple. You just need to match your reps to your goal. If your goal for the day is just to work on your pronunciation or just get a little better at catching individual words, yeah, a few repetitions, maybe 4 or 5, is totally fine. But if your goal is to truly understand what you're hearing and to lock phrases into your memory, you've got to go further. You need to repeat it until it becomes second nature, until it's completely automatic.
And that's really the big takeaway here. This research gives us a much smarter way to practice. So, the next time you sit down to study your language, just ask yourself this one simple question. What am I really practicing for right now? Because being intentional about your goal, that could change everything.